Hey everybody out here, it's Evan with The Plugs. I'm here with Chris and Marshall. We have a very special guest today, Josue Sanchez. He is a missionary, as well as comes from a generation of church planners. He has some very inspirational stories to share with you about his time out in the field. Very honored and blessed to have him here today. Welcome, Josue.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
It's been a blessing for me to be here. You guys have been a blessing to me. And the time we've been spending here together, you have inspired me. God can always use us in a tremendous way, even when we don't plan it to.
Amen.
You know, we never know how He's going to work. Some churches that we can go in and speak at, and I mean, they were in not California. They went from Bradenton, Florida. The first time I came up to Middleburg was up here. It was at Clay Hill now, and went to speak at church there. And then we went all the way to Mexico. We were in Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas. Like, we went all over the place and seeking support and then speaking and then, the speaking. And then a lot of them had the passion at first to help you, and then that quickly died off. So quickly he raised like $1,200 a month. It was like, wow, we went from doing nothing to $1,200 a month, to living on, when something's going to come. And then there was like, we can't help you this month. So then it dwindled down to $600 a month. Fast forward again on the story, later on we found out where those $600 was coming from was from Anthony Rossi at Calvary Baptist Church. You don't know who Anthony Rossi is, but he was the founder of Tropicana.
Wow.
Anthony Rossi was once he got saved, his passion was for missions.
He's an angel donor. Wow. That's beautiful.
Wow. And we found out because one of the people at the church blabbed that the money was coming from him.
Amen.
Because they didn't approve how much money he was giving to all these things. And I'm like, okay, how's that wrong? You're not giving anything. But this $600 is coming out of his pocket. Yes, he owns Tropicana. Yes, he's a multi, but still, that was his giving. Yeah. So for years growing up, we lived on that $600 a month coming from Anthony Rossi.
Wow.
He died and we never told him. He never knew that. We knew, where our support was coming from.
Yeah.
But and Dad never, as that ministry started growing and building, there were so many small churches. Where do you guys live?
I'm at Atlantic Beach. He's in Mandarin.
Yeah.
Mandarin. Okay, so you guys are in the area. So down from Tampa all the way down to Perrine. Perrine is down, you know where that's at? Going past Miami, like going to the Keys. Oh, wow. Going all the way down there. There was migrant camps all over. So while these people are not going to come to church, most likely, you're going to have meetings at their camps.
Bring it to them. Wow. Yep. So
what did Dad do? They're not going to come to me. I'm going to come to them. Mm-hmm. So we would have services in Bradenton on Sunday. Through the rest of the week where he would have services. So he would make like a circuit preacher.
Yeah.
So we would go down, we would go up to Auburndale, and then go all the way down to the, almost to the Keys. I have all these the meetings and come back. This went on forever, it looked like.
Wow.
Because, he would plant these churches and find somebody to head it. Unfortunately, because they were so small, some of them was like, well, they're not going to pay me, so I can't stay. So he would end up going back until he found somebody else. I'm glad to say that nowadays, though, each one of those places has their own pastor. Somebody's leading that. The church, the one that my little youngest brother is pastoring at, where it took 40 years to save up the money to buy the land and to make the building, because Dad says we're not going to borrow money.
Wow.
We're going to do this through faith.
Amen.
So we sold meals. Every Sunday, all throughout the week, we sold meals. And this is how, that came about. That's also how we were able to get to these camps. Because I know I said, we went and met at these camps and did that. But it wasn't just like coming in, I'm going to share the gospel with you.
Yeah.
Okay? He said, okay, those people have needs. What are their needs? Food and shelter, because a lot of them lived, 15 to 20 people in a house or more. Mm-hmm. But, so if they wanted a tent, we would get them, or they were sleeping on the floor. So we would go out and get mattresses. We would go out, and get silverware, whatever they needed. That's how it started. He started feeding them first.
Yep.
And once he started feeding them, and then he came in and started sharing the gospel. The Bible. I mean, he was sharing the gospel already, but he wasn't physically preaching to them. You know, that's when he opened up, because then they said they welcomed him in.
You gained that trust.
Yes.
That's right.
Yep.
On Friday nights, which was, I thought, man, Dad, you know, this is not the best idea. Because there's also when they got paid, and they would go out and get liquored up, and they had this big old bonfire, and they would have shootouts sometimes. Not exaggerating, you know. So, you know, drunks with guns never works out very well.
Things happen.
Yeah. And so we were going to these camps, and my dad would show up. Now he's got the van with a PA system, so now he can preach, and everybody has to listen to him. And he will come up to these guys, and some of them were big, and he says, "You know what? You need to put that beer down. You need to put those cigarettes down, and you need to sit down, because I'm going to share the gospel with you." And I'm like, "We're going to die." You know, because there's all these people here. It's just you and me, Dad. You know, how we're going to do. And you're a little guy. I can take on a few of them. I don't know how many you can fight. You know, they had. It was obviously God's Holy Spirit working through him.
Amen.
Because they sat down.
Yes, they did.
And he led them to the Lord. One guy he led to the Lord. Maybe he shouldn't have. This is just being a physician. Because he would say, "Pastor, I'm going to go with you on visitation. Anybody messes with you, I'll just stab him in the throat." Because that's how he killed the guy. Wow. And he was like, "No, now you're saved. We don't do that."
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
And but there was, I still remember this guy. He said, "I'll stab him in the throat." I don't think we want that. You know? He had been in jail for stabbing
Bring it down a couple notches.
Wow.
But he was going to protect him. You know?
You've got a different kind of sword now.
Yeah, right.
And you know, in that ministry, and like I said, it's still active up to today. With my youngest brother heading it, and it all came about from a guy that was born of a rape, which would have been most likely, you know, what did they say, or abort them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to a young lady that was thrown out by her family, living in a shack. She sold him to a guy that didn't really care for him. He went through all these things, and all along God had a plan through everything. You know, and I wish my dad was still here today, because of everything that's going on now. I have kind of, when you sent me that message the other day, it was a good thing you did.
Okay.
Because that put me back in track with the Lord. Because I have been upset, all these things that the church gets. I said, you know, we're giving up. We're, you know, instead of having services, we're doing all this. I am not going anywhere. I'm not doing anything. And I stopped praying and doing everything. And when you call, and I told Tina, and you sent that message, I told Tina, I said, man, I am ashamed. I think God used him to bring me back down.
Hey,
because I was so ticked off.
Yep.
Everything that's going on.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are we hiding? Why do we need to, you know, we need to be out in the front. We need to be doing this. And I forgot when, you know, well, one thing my dad is always Joshua 1:9. You know, mira que te mando que te fuerces. Say it in English. I can't remember it in English.
You sent to us, didn't you?
Have not I commanded thee, be strong of good courage, be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest.
Wow.
What's going on the cards?
Wow.
Yeah. You know, and
he just said that the other day. We were talking about making some cards up, and that was the verse.
Yes. And, you know, and he always said, you know, it's just, remember, you know, you're, what God said to, you know, to Joshua. Josue in English is Joshua. So, you know, and God's got, you know, a calling for you. And, you know, it's like I said, so when you called me and you said those things, and like, I had gotten out of praying and become too caught up on what's going on, instead of thinking, and I don't make my father a God, because he's not. Okay, he's a vessel of the Lord. So I'm cautious when I speak about him, that I'm not putting him up here on a pedestal, because he's not. I mean, this was a man that will come to you, and you know, he still practiced anointing, washing of feet, and did all that.
He was a very humble man.
Yes. You know, and everything, when he died with nothing monetary, still without an income or anything like that, because everything was always to the Lord, for the Lord. I'm not saying preachers shouldn't get paid or anything like that.
No.
Yeah.
But one of the greatest things I remember hearing about him, we were at First Baptist in Middleburg. There was a missions conference, and one of the guys that was speaking, turns out he spoke Spanish, and he had been down in the Bradenton area. So afterwards, I asked him, I said, "Oh, did you know Josue Sanchez?" My dad, he says, "Yeah." And then he turns around and says to the next guy, he says, "Man, you ought to meet this guy's dad. He wants to lead the whole world to Christ. He's just on fire. He wants to tell everybody. He doesn't care who it is." And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. You know, and he'll do it for nothing. He says, like, and he did.
That's right.
He started prison ministry there in Manatee County for the Spanish. Never paid. They offered to pay him. He says, "No, I don't want to get paid. I'm doing this for the Lord."
His rewards in heaven. He left a legacy,
You know,
though.
yeah.
Yep.
And it's like, and when he died, and we had this memorial, he died in Puerto Rico. That's where he was living with his wife. My mom died when I was 25. Dad remarried a year later. And his wife was from Puerto Rico, so when they retired, they wanted to go back to Puerto Rico. He retired, 75 years old. He calls me and says, they were living down in Bradenton. He says, "Oh, I'm retiring." I said, "So how long is that going to last?" And he said, "Because you're the one that always says, you know, a Christian never retires until he leaves this earth." You know? And, you know, as a pastor, you're never going to retire. He said, "No, I'm retiring." So he moved into this old people's mobile home park. That lasted for a couple of years. No, that lasted for a year. A church in Avon Park needed a pastor. He says,
Got the itch.
boom, next thing you know, we're visiting Orange Park, and he's leading, until they got so he was there for 2 years. He said, "I'm going to Puerto Rico." He goes to Puerto Rico, and they moved to a neighborhood that's a rough area. There he goes again, always in the rough areas. Goes to the police department and starts bringing them. One of the things I failed to mention was Dad did a lot of things, very experienced. Besides farming and stuff like that, he was a baker. He's also, they knew how to do. So he made all these sweets, and he brought them to the police department.
Oh, wow.
So the sweets he would make, so he started bringing them to them, and he started praying with them, and they said, "Well, nobody's ever done that for us. The chief of police never did that." He came at the funeral, at his funeral there in Puerto Rico. The chief of police and whoever's over the police commissioner showed up.
Yep.
And we're like, "What is going on? All these cops are coming in. You know, we're in a rough neighborhood. We're thinking, man." And they said, "No, we want to speak."
Wow.
Yeah.
So the captain, she speaks, she says, they start saying, "Well, he was my dad too. He was my spiritual father." So they start sharing the testimony. He said, he started bringing in this food, and he did that for about a month. He said, then one day he shows up, no food, but with a Bible. He closes the door. He says, "Oh, we're going to have Bible study right now." He said, "We've been taking his food for a month, and we couldn't tell him no." You know?
Got him.
So
Oh, wow.
he always opened up, like I said before, with food.
Gosh.
You know, so now he's having Bible study.
Yep.
He led the captain and the commissioner to the Lord. So he wanted to be one of the pallbearers that's why he showed up at the funeral.
Wow.
That's
He says,
amazing.
"You know, we're in such a rough neighborhood. People have shown us nothing but hate. Nobody ever said, all the years, 20-some years since I've been here, nobody's ever shown us love." He said, that, you know, people in the church that come by once in a while and drop off things and stuff like that.
Yep.
Your dad was the only one that ever came in and invested in us.
Yes.
You know, I went to the supermarket not too far from his house where he had been living there in Puerto Rico, and to get some things. There was somebody selling some foods and stuff like that out front. But I asked him, I said, "Do you know Josue Sanchez?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, he's just passed away." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And the cashier says, "Yeah, he would sit out here and sell his sweets, and that's how he raised funds to support himself." He said he sold his sweets and have Bible study with the people in prayer. Because if somebody's giving you food, even if you're an atheist, you're most likely going to listen to their prayer. Because I've seen him do that with an atheist. She said, "No, I don't want your prayer and all that." "Okay, I'm going to pray for you anyway."
Yep.
You know?
He gave me something.
You know?
Something in return.
So what are you going to do? You're going to punch him in the mouth and shut him up?
Yeah.
You know, so he did that. So he always showed the love of Christ. And I remember him, I guess, I didn't think about this, but at his memorial service here in Bradenton, they were speaking. My oldest son, Jeremy, my oldest of the twins, you know him. And he said he was the most Paul, most like the disciple Paul that I've ever seen. And I'm like, wow, I didn't think about that. It's true. He was in prison.
That's right.
People talk about Philippians 4:13. What? I can do all things through God. But what is, you go 2 verses before that, what did Paul say? I have learned to live no matter in what situation, whether in wealth or in poorness. That's not the exact word, but I mean, I've learned to, to be content in the Lord regardless of where I'm at.
Amen.
That's right.
And that's what my dad was.
Amen.
Because as a little kid, I didn't see that.
Yep.
And the times when we're in Cuba, we're standing in line waiting for a handout from the government to whatever they give you, or we're getting some food from the garbage, and he's not here to see after us. I got I'm disabled. My mother's rheumatoid arthritis. She's disabled. There's not a whole lot we can do. We didn't see that picture.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see that until, so it's like, and that's what I said, what does God have for you, for you, and for you to do?
Yep.
How can we do missions?
That's right.
First it starts at home.
Yes.
Okay, and then we go elsewhere. What do we do as missions is not evangelizing, it's planting churches, and they disciple. We've taken it the wrong way. We've taken it as like, we're going to go over there and we're going to evangelize. We're going to go door to door. We're going to go this. I said, if you don't do that here in Jacksonville or in Middleburg, don't go across the ocean where someplace that you cannot speak the language in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And then have somebody interpret for you and say some canned speech. I have turned down, I don't know how many so-called mission trips, I call them Christian vacations.
You're exactly right about that.
Because they asked me to go to these places. I said, where are we going to stay? Are we going to stay with the people? No, we're going to stay in a resort and all that. I said, what the people we're going to be working with? Oh, it's a real rough neighborhood. Our life is going to be at risk. But there's a compound there. I said, that's where I want to stay.
Yep.
Oh, no, that's not what we're going to do. I said, well, I'm not going.
Yep.
Because you're just taking a vacation.
Yeah.
You're going to go have all these funds and these pictures and do this and that. What good are you going to do?
You're talking down to somebody at that point.
Exactly.
Meet them on their level.
Exactly.
Then it goes back to Luke 10, and Jesus gives the disciples the instructions on how to go out and do the missionary work.
No money, no scripts, no
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, keep your culture back at the house. Don't bring your AC units with you.
And what did Paul do? He was a tent maker, right?
Yep.
Which meant what? He supported his own self.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
We go in and we go to these places and we're like, for one thing is, when in the time I was down in Panama, which was only for a year, working with the Kuna Indians, we had a group come down from Waco, Texas, Baylor University, the softball team. Oh, they were going to have missions. I said, what are they going to do? Oh, they're going to do Vacation Bible School. Where we lived on a basically 8-acre island, with all these about 2,000 people, and they were going to be staying in the place where we were at, in the feeding center. And my wife and I said, we're going to the city. You guys can look after them. I said, why? I said, we had Vacation Bible School 2 weeks ago. Week before that, we had Vacation Bible School. Every group that comes here, we have Vacation Bible School. We have a stack. There was on the side of the hut, there was a homemade cabinet there where all these stuff these people have been bringing in: soccer balls, volleyballs, softballs, frisbees, T-shirts and blankets. Backpacks and all this stuff, and all these crayons. And I'm like, and what good are they doing? So what's happening is we have created a culture that the pastors or the mission, they're there, instead of calling on the people, them minister to their people. They're like, okay, the United States, they got money.
Yep.
Their people are going to bring me this. So if I play up to what they want me to do, yes, you can come in, you can do Vacation Bible School. We come in, we feel so good. Oh,
It's the feel-good feeling.
exactly.
That's what it is.
Because
Yep.
I appreciate so much more what we have here. And I told people, actually, when we were First Baptist in Middleburg, we took a group to Mexico. I said, look, don't go over there and say you feel sorry for them. The last thing I ever wanted to hear when I was living in those conditions, if you coming in and say how sorry you feel for me.
You don't know what it's like.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I said, help me build, help me do something. Don't come in sharing your, hey, they for God so loved the world. Say, fine, show me.
That's right.
Tell me, but show me. If I need to build a shelter, if I need, to live out of whatever I do, So what do? If we go on these fields, it's just like we need to ask what they need help with.
need.
And
Yes.
the people that are there, okay, what are your people doing? Oh, they're not doing anything. They're waiting for you guys to come. I'm not going.
Yeah.
Because if your people are not going to get off their duff and do something,
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
Yeah.
Because all you're looking at is for me to hand you something.
Yeah.
When we lived there with those Indians, the chiefs were always like, "Oh, how much money did you have? How much?" I said, "I got no money for you." I said, "I'm just working with you guys in agriculture. We're going to go out in the field and we're going to plant. We're going to do. We're in the jungle." They didn't want to do that. He says, "Everybody else is bringing in money."
They've been conditioned.
Exactly.
Yep.
I said, "I got nothing to bring you." I said, "I'm sharing the love of Christ through this.
Right.
I'll help you. We teach in the Sunday school. I'll help with the youth and do all that." I said, "But I'm not bringing you any money."
That's right.
And they're like, "Well, nobody's ever told us that." I said, "That's the problem."
Mm-hmm.
Said, "We've been going about church in the wrong way. I mean, missions in the wrong way. We think in the United States we have the solutions for everything."
When did Jesus pass out money?
Exactly.
God's plan? I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Remember
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
the-
Yeah.
I think his plan is to teach us how to fish.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's like,
fish, and we go back to food again, right? Multiplication.
Like,
Yeah.
Fish,
like the
the
guy
bread.
who was sitting outside of the gate and he was a beggar and the disciples come and he's looking like, "Oh, they're going to give me some money." He's like, "No.
Yeah.
I'll give you what I have that's
Yeah.
better than money."
Better than
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And are we teaching those people to live by faith or to live by us?
Yeah.
And getting back to my father, he would do things that would upset me, and they shouldn't have, but they did, because he would say, "We got to pray about this. You got to have faith." I said, "Dad, I've been praying, nothing's happened," because I'm one of those person that prayed and it's like, "Okay, nothing
Okay,
happened.
ready?
Okay, I'm gonna go through and try to do it on my own." And even though I had the greatest example right there, mentor in front of me, but I was hard headed, and I still wanted to do things my way, my stupid way. We're down in Bradenton when I was telling you about that green van. We bought the van, needed tires. He says, "We need tires for the van. We don't have money. Let's pray about it." I said, "Okay, let's pray about it." I'm thinking, yeah. So we sat down, and I have an older brother and a younger brother. For some reason, it was always me that he picked on. No, so he's like, "Let's pray about it." So we prayed about it. He leaves that morning. He comes up that afternoon. He says, "Look, the van's got 4 new tires. and 5 new tires in the spare." I said, "You set me up. You knew you somebody." He says, "No. I went to Calvary Baptist Church. He had to speak that day. There were Spanish people. I was his translator, so I didn't have to go with him that day. But there were Spanish folks he was speaking with. And then he said, on the way back, I was coming down Cortez Road, and I stopped at this Texaco gas station. And this was back in the days when it was full service, and they did tires and auto repairs and all that. And there's a Toyota dealership down the road. Well, somebody from the Toyota dealership had just bought a brand new truck, didn't want the tires, brought him over to the to the gas station, bought their tires and left his tires there. The guy from the gas station is a Christian. My dad pulls up in the van. It turns out the guy went to Calvary Baptist Church also. We did not know this. He says, "I see your van needs tires. I'm gonna give you 5 new tires." My dad could barely speak English, so this is from his wording. And my dad said, "No money, no money." He said,
What do you want for it? Yeah.
No money." He puts the tires on, sends him home. He gets home, he tells me that. I said, "No, you set me up. You already had this plan." I know there's no way, but I'm telling you, because we were sitting around and it's like, we have no food, we got nothing. He says, "Let's just pray." We were praying, and then there'd be an offering in the mail. Somebody's like, "God put it in my heart to give you this."
Exactly. Yeah.
I said, "No, I know you did.
Yeah.
You did that. You did."
Yeah.
And it was the Lord.
Yeah.
But it was like, and I go back, and like I said, it's like through these things, and I need to go back through prayer. Mm-hmm. How did he survive all these things?
Yep.
All all those 6 years spending on that field. I remember he told me they would send him out to cut sugarcane. We had some kind of bugs or ticks on him. They would be all over them. And he said, it's doing it for God's glory. I'm like, how can it be for God's glory? You're going through this. He said they would have nothing to eat, so he get a pot and start boiling some water, and frog will fall in it, or flies. He said, "No more meat." And yes, it's gross, but that's something to survive on.
Surviving, yeah.
And then I'm like, so it came to when he was saying, when I was going back, they said, God's got his purpose for you. Yep. And for me, seeing all the things he went through, honestly, I didn't want to experience that. I didn't want to go through that. I'm like, well, if God's got a purpose for you and that's how you were treated, I didn't want to go through that. Instead of, but that's the selfish me. Using the excuse, I got a wife and I got kids and I got this. No. When God calls you, go. And I tell young people today, don't do like what I did. I put it off till I was 50 years old when I went out to work with those Indians and working on that field and working in that jungle and doing all that. Let me tell you what, after 4 hours of work and stuff like that, I was dead. You know, even though the farming I've done throughout the years and stuff like that, and I find out, man, like, okay, when I was in my 20s and 30s, that was a whole lot easier. Yeah. Because going back to working with the Mexicans, and other things we did was, I mean, besides ministering with them, I would work in the fields with them during the summertime. That is hard work.
Yeah, that's it.
If you ever pick tomatoes or doing that, that is slave labor. Doing it by hand, being out there. You know, then they had the women in the packing house. I'm sorry, they had a greenhouse where you sort the plants and all that. And I said, do they have any openings over there? They said, that's for the women. I said, I want to go.
Take me.
They said, why? I said, well, they have a fan. They're not on the hot sun. So I did that. But, you know, circumventing God's plan.
Yes.
Is what I spent too much time doing. God's plan for my life. What am I doing now? Through the work that we're doing there, where we live in Hawthorne, I started 3 years ago as a food ministry. Guess what that came out of? I named it Christ Others. Why? Because my dad's ministry was always something for Christ and others.
Yeah.
You know, you come last. So that's what I never legally named it, but that's what we called it. So what we do is we sell Cuban sandwiches or whatever other foods Cuban food that I prepare, that I learned how to do from my mom and dad. They were great cooks. And then we raise those funds because at our church, we have I'm with the Christian Missionary Alliance. We're there in Keystone, Friendship Bible Church. But we also we have a college for missionary aviation, very small school. And it makes it less expensive for people to go into missionary pilots to go out in the mission field. And there's still a great need for those, you know, to go out. So I'm like, okay, so some of these people have families and they have kids. So what did I do? I put myself as all them, and I'm like, we can sell these food, raise those funds, and provide it to help them. Because the quicker they can get their schooling and get done, they can go out in the field and do the work. Now I'm trying to take the hand costs off of them from the finances, which unfortunately is what keeps too many from going.
Yes. Yep.
Because they'll go to college, and I found out that aviation, it is outrageous. It's like $250,000 for a pilot if you go through a conventional school and all that. And I'm like, wow. So, you know, so we're working on that end. And sometimes I'm like, we're still not doing enough. Maybe I can do more. We do more local missions than we do foreign right now. When this goes out, people will know. But because my dad always said, don't let your, right hand or left hand know what your right hand's doing.
That's right.
Exactly.
So the work that he did for years, when so many people don't hear about it, was because he didn't share. The Bradenton Herald did a story on another church there in Bradenton. Oh, they're working with the migrants, they're doing this. And I was still a teenager. I remember when I read that story and I said, Dad, I'm mad. We're going to need to call him and tell him, you know, you're the one that started doing this. He says, let them get their whatever glory they want. My glory is in heaven. I don't want any of that.
That's right. That's where we lay
We're
our
still
treasures,
working.
right?
Yep.
You know, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not right. We worked hard. We're the one that did it with these people.
Yep.
And they come in, they're doing this, you know, and they got more money and they're giving all these people this, and, you know, and it's like,
Didn't matter.
let them,
Wasn't doing it for that.
you know,
Yep.
let them. The people that left, some of them came back, you know, because some churches, unfortunately, are sheep swappers instead of, building, and they came back. But like I said, at his memorial service here in the States, when he passed away, I'm sorry, obviously when he passed away, but his memorial service, when we had it, there was 26 pastors that showed up to speak. I had no idea.
Wow.
26.
Some of these people, I knew them when they were like 11 or 12 years old. There were those migrant kids in the camp. One guy stands up, and he's the head of the Pentecostal for the whole state of Florida for the Spanish. And he says,
Wow.
he's my dad. Every one of them says, he's my dad too.
Wow.
He's my dad also. He says, I remember when I would come to church and I was just trying to cause trouble. And he would just tell me, he says, you need to sit down there, you need to listen. And he said, I didn't want to listen. And here I am now. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking and I'm like, there was only 20, they said, yeah, only 26 were able to make it. There was, he planted churches in Mexico, Colombia, Dominican Republic, all over the state of Florida, from Tampa down. And I'm like, wow. All this from a little guy that once wanted to win the world for Christ. His own church there in Bradenton only had 40 members. But yet throughout the world, there's thousands of people. I think there was one guy in Peru. Also, then there's like they couldn't make it because so costly and trying to get to. But they send their love through others, and I'm like, wow.
Just had no idea how far his reach was.
Yes.
Right.
So we never know the impact we have on other people.
I was just talking about that. Wow.
Yep.
I was talking about that with my mom, because I was saying when the Holy Spirit moves you to do something or say something to somebody, it doesn't. You don't know what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When you pray in the morning, she's like, I just want to do something for God every day. I said, well, claim it. When you wake up, say that prayer and have that feeling in your heart as if it's already done. But you don't know what it's going to be. Like Marshall had an incident when he went to the store and that lady was being all rude and he just smiled at her. Have a good day. You don't know what that did for her day. You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you never, and one thing Dad did, and like I was saying, he was not highly educated. Well, he educated himself, not only from what those men in Cuba at the church taught him, but also he had, and I ended up with him, I don't even know where they're at now. He had all these concordance and books and all that. I mean, you went into, he had a room this size in his library, all these things he had read and studying in the Bible. So he didn't know, they kept telling him, because there's a jealousy amongst pastors. I got this many, I did this many baptisms, or I got this degree, or I got this, and I got this.
I don't think I would
that.
keep any track of the numbers.
Yeah, well, I'm a doctor and I'm doing this, and
It's too much work.
and
Got
so
my
they,
master's in divinity from Harvard.
they kept telling him, you need to go to seminary.
Oh,
You need to go to seminary. You need to go to seminary. And he was like, yeah, I need to go to seminary. I said, Dad, your writing is atrocious. I would write a lot of the work that he did. I'm the one that, now he would dictate it out, but I did the writing because his handwriting was terrible. This guy's got a 4th grade education. But man, when he stood up to preach, his Bible knowledge was solid. One of the churches there in Bradenton was with the Pentecostal church. They would invite him to come over during the summer and do revival. And, this is the holiness. They're all laying down, going through, blah, 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 and then so in the middle of the service, these people start getting up, and they're running down the aisle. They're doing all these things. And he says, look, you need to quit flopping around like a chicken without a head on, or a fish out of water. He says, I'm sharing the gospel. If you got something to share, and the Holy Spirit is sharing it, if you say it's in tongues, you need to have an interpreter. Otherwise, you need to be quiet and sit down. And I'm like, this is on a Monday. I'm like, we're not coming back this week. There's no way they're going to have us back. They had him back for 15 years in a row.
Whoa.
Because the pastor says, yeah, we get very emotional, but we don't have somebody to share the gospel like you do. Share the Bible.
Yep.
And I'm like, and she had to agree. And I'm like, this is a guy with a 4th grade education that people kept telling him he needs to go to college, and he needs to go to seminary. He needs to do this, and he needs to do that. And what did he do every day? Now, one thing is, when we got to the United States, and now we're all living together, we had our house. My dad's prayer room was a bathroom. It was the only quiet place in the house. 5 o'clock in the morning. You couldn't go to the bathroom between 5 and 7 o'clock in the morning. Because where he was going to be? He was going to be praying. He fasted every morning.
That's crazy.
He would fast for at least half a day. Sometimes he would fast for weeks.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I know if I need to go to the bathroom, either go before he gets up or, because he's going to be in there.
Yep.
And I was like, what's taking you so long? I mean, if you told him, he said, pray for me. He would never be, Evan, I'm going to pray for you. He would say that, But I remember he embarrassed the mess out of me. Because as a teenager, you get easily embarrassed, okay? And, especially with your parents. And we're standing there at, Woolco at the time. Standing there in line at the checkout. One lady says, would you pray for me? My dad says, okay. Let's all bow.
Right in there.
We're going to pray. I'm like, Dad, we're in line. He said, no, we're going to pray right now.
Right now.
And then the cashier even put her head down.
Oh my gosh. That's awesome. That is awesome.
I'm like, so he would write the name down and what it was about, and he would pray later.
Wow.
But he prayed for you right there. So I always remember it's like, if we would go places, I said, don't ask him to pray now if you don't want to, because and his prayers were always forever. We would go places and everybody us to eat. He would say, before we get there, I said, Dad, if they ask you to pray, don't do it.
When's it gonna end?
I said, because my prayer is always like, and I was saying this kidding around, rub, dub, dub, thank you God for the grub,
Oh gosh.
Oh man.
That was not as serious, but I would do that. When we would upset people, I said, no, I'm not being serious. But Dad would start praying. And basically he went through the Lord's Prayer, the model prayer, and I think he went from Genesis to Revelation. We're like 45 minutes later, man, he's still praying. And I'm like, chicken over there is looking pretty good, but
Food's cold.
yeah, he would just pray and pray. So it was like, if you wanted somebody to pray for you, and my kid said that also at his memorial service, he said, we always knew we had somebody praying for us. And we always knew if we needed somebody to pray for us, he was the one to ask. Because it was never about lip service.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to pray for you. If you had a need, he took it personally. So now it's not just your need, it's how can I minister to you?